What's going on, everybody? Andrew Thompson here of the Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel. Joining me today is a man that you've seen in professional wrestling for over 2 decades. He has been in the business. He has done quite a few things. He's done quite a bit. You've seen him all over the place. Chris Hero. Chris, what's going on, man?
What's going on, man? How are you enjoying the gathering?
I am enjoying it a lot. I appreciate it.
Have you been to a gathering of the Juggalos before?
I have not.
You should go sometime. Get you some good interviews there.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Of course. The last time we've all seen over the past year or so, we've seen you do the podcast with Conrad Thompson. That has been on hiatus for a little bit, for about 2 months now.
So I just moved a couple months ago from Orlando. I now reside in Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah, so we're just trying to figure out the details of when we pick back up, and I really enjoyed it. I've had a number of shows that I've liked a whole lot, and I really like it. This weekend, I actually I've shot 2 interviews for High Spots already. I interviewed Molly Holly, I interviewed Derek Dukes, and I'm hoping to get an interview with Jeff Gaylord in a little bit. So just trying out a little something different. You know, I love talking about wrestling, so it's kind of up my alley. So I'll be doing your job.
So you mentioned doing the interviews for High Spots. How does it feel being on the other side, opposed to doing so many interviews that you've done over the past, however many years?
So I enjoy it. I like it a whole lot because I am such a wrestling fan, and I don't just like the surface knowledge. I like all the little details, all the stories. How'd you meet this person? How'd you connect to this guy? How'd you get booked here? How'd you come up with your name? What was your first ring meet? I love all those little, to me, it gives me just a little bit more context. And I've heard a number of interviews over the years that I've liked, but I've also heard a lot that I don't like because I feel like some interviewers don't always do the homework, and it leaves me watching it like, no, why are you moving on? Ask him the next, come on, man. So this is my chance to try to dig a little bit deeper and try to be a little bit more prepared than some interviews.
You want to know what's funny about that? See, I had some things I wanted to ask you, but like when you mentioned interviewing, like I try to go about it as like, I want to be prepared, but I also want it to be conversational, but I don't
be a robot. You don't want to go, so in your first year in the business, no, it's have an outline so that you have all this stuff in the back of your head so that when it comes up, yeah. And I'm trying to learn how to not talk over the other guy.
but no, it was just like more so of a thing of like making sure that you can get good information, but at the same time don't try to like pry it out. Like you know,
gotta be entertaining. It's got to be entertaining. And then it doesn't matter if you have these 5 questions planned. If you get a lot out of these 3 questions, it's good enough, And
then, of course, I mentioned at the top, you've been in the business for over 2 decades, man. Do you ever get the time to like really sit and reflect and think about what you've done over the past 20 years, or does it just kind of just fly by?
I feel incredibly appreciative and grateful to have done all the things I've done. And it is hard in the moment to just kind of see the bigger picture, but I've tried to do that over the years, whether I'm in Japan, in a hotel room all by myself. I take a look out the window and I'm like, man, this is crazy. It's normal for me right now, but this is just crazy, or, the 2 different times I was with WWE, fired both times, but just getting to travel and do that kind of stuff and just be exposed to audiences all over the world. It's just, man, it feels great because I know what it feels like to be on that other side and to be appreciating wrestling from that aspect, so that I can recognize it on the other side just helps me enjoy things all the more.
And I know you're a big basketball fan as well. Did you have the chance to catch up with the NBA Finals? Milwaukee Bucks got the W. Giannis pulled it through. I feel terrible for Chris Paul, saying that it seemed like he almost had it, like he was that close, and it got snatched away from him. But, I mean, I feel like Giannis, he proved everybody wrong. I feel like it was so many doubters, and then, of course, the comments that James Harden made when he was just like, he was all height and no actual skill.
I wish I could do that. I wish I didn't have to have any skill. I just run and dunk it. How many games in a row did the Suns lose? 4. They lost in 4. I went into it thinking if the Suns win, I'm a huge Giannis fan. Huge. He's my favorite non-Duke basketball player in the NBA. Like, he's just, from his draft to now, he's got such a great story. Humility, like his family, like, man, I just crack a smile every time I hear him talk about stuff. Like, I was riding so hard for him, especially the last 2 seasons were so disappointing the way they ended. But I told myself, like, you know what, if the Suns do win, it's not the worst thing, because it would be nice for Chris Paul to win that title. But as the series went on, I was like, man, forget Chris Paul. And he's, he just, his style, and he's a little bit dirty sometimes. And I'm just like, you know what? You lost 4 straight games. So I'm overjoyed, man. We watched it, and just the celebration. You get tears in your eyes, It was a great season, great end of the season.
You want to know what I think was cool about this NBA playoffs is, like, you saw the next crop of guys coming up, like the Trae Youngs, the Devin Bookers, like, you see them like rising to the occasion. I think that was probably, like, out of anything, that was the coolest thing about this year's playoffs. Like, you had people who was like, oh, I don't think it's that interesting, or it might not be that good. I'm like, because you're seeing the next guys that's going to be there for the next 5 to 10 years that's carrying it.
Mm-hmm. And a cool statistic is, for 32 consecutive years, there was somebody in the NBA Finals that was a teammate at one point of Shaquille O'Neal. That streak ended this year. None of the guys in the finals had ever been on a team with Shaq. So that just goes to show you that it's the young crop. Devin Booker was showing out. You got, Chris Middleton grinding it out, and Drew Holiday and Bobby Portis. Like, and he's only 26 too. It seems like he's been around forever, but that is Tony Atlas in the background. I don't think he really thought that was funny. I think that was a fake laugh. Yeah.
But we recently heard that you were at the we're gonna wait till Tony Atlas finish. But we recently heard that you were at the ROH Best in the World pay-per-view that had came out. And Joe Koff had publicly said that Chris Hero is always ROH. He's always welcome. Like, what was your experience like seeing the people of ROH getting able to wrestle in front of fans again after a whole year?
I have a number of friends that work for Ring of Honor behind the scenes, in front of the camera. And it was really cool for me to be even just a small part of that. To see him back in front of fans is awesome. Just to interact with people that I hadn't seen for a while. To interact with people, because as you know, it's been a crazy year and a half, but that was the first wrestling show I had been to since everything shut down. So it was great for me to go to a show, to be able to be helpful in certain areas without the pressure of having to perform myself, or having to call a match, or having to decide which place I'm going to take a booking for, or whatever. I didn't have to worry about any of that. I could just hang out. I helped produce, whatever, helped kind of relay information back and forth, got on the headsets, talked to the production team, that kind of stuff. And some of that I'm familiar with, some of it I'm not familiar with. So it was also a learning experience for me to try to figure that stuff out. I really enjoyed it. I thought they did great. And Bandito, he's the future, man. He's PWG champion. He's Ring of Honor champion. I know y'all haven't seen him without his mask, but he's a handsome gentleman as well. He's just fantastic. So I think him being the face of Ring of Honor right now, or sorry, from the eyes of Ring of Honor right now, I think they have a bright future. Once they start hitting it regularly with fans, I think people kind of slept on Ring of Honor. They're like, oh, they're doing stuff, but I don't blame them. It's hard to watch wrestling without an audience. It is hard. So they just have a crop of talent that's exceptional, from the old school guys like the Briscoes or Homicide, or you've got this new talent, like Bandito, like I said, Gresham with his man. They have some really good things going on, and I'm excited for them to get back at it.
You want to continue to speak on the Best of the World pay-per-view? That match that Gresham had with Mike Bennett, like the entire match was good, but like the final stretch, that final 10 minutes, like Gresham is, and not that I'm not taking away from Mike Bennett at all, but I'm talking like, but
Bennett held his
Yes,
He's a guy you look at that on paper and you go, okay, Bennett has had these type of matches for his career, and Gresham is this. And you would think, oh, how are they going to mesh together? Bennett held his own, right? And people left that thinking like, not that Gresham lost anything, but like they're like, damn, okay. That was my second favorite match on the show. I love Jay Lethal and Brody King. I thought that was brutality. It was less of a match and more of a massacre, but I enjoyed that, and then I also enjoyed Gresham. Also, what I loved about that is they took their time. Everybody now in wrestling is in such a hurry. I've been there too. I understand it. You just want to go out and you want to tear it up, right? But you can't replicate that emotional investment that happens after you put that work in. That's why I love wrestling 20 plus minutes, because you set the table, you wrestle, you feel each other out, you get your body warmed up, you get the audience warmed up, and then when you start hitting, that's when it's like, oh man. And that's what that match was. That final stretch, it would not have been the same if you cut off 5 minutes at the beginning. Still would have been hot, wouldn't have been as effective or impactful.
And of course, you being there, like, did you kind of? I know it's been over a year since you've been in the ring or been in a sanctioned match, let's say. But did you kind of get that itch back a little bit while being there?
Brother, I'm itchy all the time. But I'm also patient enough to realize I've sat out this long, I've waited this long. I'm not going to pull the trigger until it's the perfect thing. I don't know what that is, but I'll know it when it happens. And man, I'm thirsty. I want to get back at it. I see so many people I want to work with. So many people I just want to kick the shit out of. So many people that previous opponents, new there's so much I want to get back at.
It's so many. It's like a variety of different talents out there, man. Especially on the independent scene. Like, I'm a big fan of the independent. Like, I like watching like Lee Moriarty, like guys like Daniel Garcia, man. It's so. Like, just the crop of different talents out there. Like, you got guys like, I don't know if you heard of guys like Darius Lockhart or O'Shea Edwards, man. It's like just like you just see so many new guys coming through, and then like you seeing like the guys who were there, like they starting to like move on to the next level. It's like a graduation type thing.
Yeah, it is inspiring, man, and it's the young guys and girls rather. They'll keep you on your toes. You see something, you're like, damn, what was that? Or like I hadn't even thought that was a possibility, but yeah, man, it makes me eager.
And you spoken at length, of course, about your WWE run. Something I did want to touch on is like you did have the chance to go outside the promotion outside of WWE a little bit. I know you went to ICW in Scotland one time. How did that all come about? Like, because of course you don't really see a lot of WWE contracted talents being able to go outside, but it seemed like you and a couple of other guys were able to like dip and dab out. Was that mainly because of being in NXT and sort of it being sort of kind of more flexible?
Yeah, it was just a very interesting time, and because I had working relationships with so many different independent companies, I was a guy that WWE knew, like, because basically somebody would put in a request to WWE, then WWE would come to me and say, hey, are you interested in doing this, or can you whatever, and then I would be like, oh yeah, cool, let's do it, and then they would make it happen, and then the contact would be with me and the company. So I did ICW, I did Evolve, I did Reality of Wrestling. I got to be in a battle royal with Jacob Fatu, so that's kind of cool. I got to do some seminars, and it was just very interesting for me to dip my toes back into that independent world without having the WWE security blanket, But I mean, that's what I do. I travel, I wrestle. I'm used to it. I love it. So it was very cool. Progress was the other one I got to do. So it was cool for me to be able to have that opportunity.
Cool. Speaking of Progress, I'm kind of surprised that we never got to see, since you were in NXT UK, we never got to see the rematch between you and Walter, the one that you guys had in 2016, I believe. And did you wrestle Walter when he was like Big Daddy Walter or something like?
I wrestled Walter in Germany several times when he was new. And I did wrestle him once for NXT UK, but it was technically my first match for them. It was at an Access Mania weekend, and it was one of those like 10 a.m. in the morning, like you got to get ready for TV, but it feels like TV, but it doesn't feel like TV, and it wasn't it wasn't an epic match. We had a couple good things, but it wasn't. That was my introduction to coming to NXT UK. There were a handful of people that I was always like, oh, I can see the trajectory of me and this guy meeting up. I think my favorite two NXT UK accomplishments were having the rounds match. I had a European rounds match with Sid Scala. That was cool because, you've got Regal and Brookside and Johnny Sane and all these guys, and I got to go have that first one under, WWE banner. And then also I had a match with Tyler Bate that was, 25-ish minutes, and I first wrestled him when he was 17. So it was cool to kind of come full circle, and he's such a stud. He's so good.
And like as we kind of wind down this interview, Chris, like when you look at the overall scope of your career and as you move forward, because you still got plenty more years left, man. But like, do you see yourself kind of in that player coach role with whatever next steps you take, or do you want to solely just focus on the in-ring stuff?
I can't see myself wrestling somewhere and not caring about what else goes on the show. I can't help it. I'm not going to completely give unsolicited advice, because I know that sucks when you're just like, dude, I didn't ask your opinion. I don't care if you think it sucked. But I would like to work with companies in more than just performing. I'd like to at least, what I mean by this, I'd like to at least have a seat at the table when it comes to having conversations about, oh, we're thinking about doing this, or we're thinking, what do you think about this? And I'd like to use my experience to kind of give my opinion. If they take it, cool. If not, cool. But I think I can be very helpful for a number of companies. So it will be exciting to do that. I know people look at me as, the older brother, the uncle, the whatever that'll come in and kind of pass down a little wisdom. But, I'm going to start knocking people in their ass again. I got so much more to do.
So something cool that I did want to bring up to you. I recently heard Eddie Kingston do an interview, and he was talking about, it was all good. He said that even though, you two didn't see eye to eye on some things over the years, he was just like, Chris, if it wasn't for Chris Hero, I wouldn't know as much as I do know about like outside U.S. professional wrestling. And he said a lot of good things. It was just like, I'm appreciative that I was able to be under that learning tree with you and Cesaro as well. He did mention that you guys didn't see eye to eye, but I just thought it was cool, like the way he spoke of you, and it was more that he said positive things. So I think that was a cool thing, and I just want to get your take on that. I'm not expecting you be super elaborate about it, but I think it's cool, like when we can be respectful of one another, even though we might not always,
What do they say about broken clocks? They're right at least twice a day. Right. Yeah, man, I do have fond memories of, my first few matches versus Kingston. And I thought that little under the surface level resentment between he and I think made for good chemistry. And we never took liberties with one another. Like, I never actually tried to end his career. He never tried to end mine, but we were giving each other 100%. And, there was a time when we were pretty close and friendly. And then there's a time when we weren't. So it is fun to look back on some of those, a younger version of myself and kind of reflect back on that. So that's about all I got to say about that.
That's cool, man. I think that's cool. Two grown men just, it is what it is sometimes.
I ain't going to give him that much credit.
Okay, but last question here, Chris. ROH Hall of Fame. Joe Koff has mentioned it. He's brought it up a couple times, saying it is a thing that they've actively discussed plenty of times. If you had to give three talents to give that first crop of guys ROH Hall of Fame, who would you add in?
Oh, man. Christopher Daniels, Bryan Danielson, and I'm going to give Samoa Joe the nod over Punk. And the only reason I'm going to give him the nod over Punk is because I was not there for Punk's ROH run. He left and I came in 2006. So not to demean or diminish anything that he had done, I just was not there for it. And then if you got to have a tag team, you got to have the Briscoes, right? And if you have to have like an attraction, a special attraction, it's got to be Kobashi. So that's my, what did I say? I said Daniels, because, he's the OG that started it all with them. Danielson, right? Samoa Joe, Briscoes, Kenta Kobashi.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andrew Thompson at Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel, signing off with the man himself, Chris Hero, and we are out. Peace.